Hey everyone, Hunter back again. Today I'm going to start a set of tutorials on something I've been asked about several times, and that is on how do I get the parting lines or the seam line out of my fuel tanks for my model trucks. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. Most of your tractor kits come with the chrome fuel tanks that have this hideous seam that goes all the way, you know, on the ends and across the top and around the bottom, and it's pretty much a bear to get cleaned up. There is several people out there that I guess a lot of builders look at them and respect them as you know, real good builders or whatever, that are, I guess, going over these things with bare metal foil and, you know, covering the seam up. Well, the problem is with that, they may look good in the pictures, but I can guarantee you when that model is sitting right in front of you on a table, if you cover up this seam right here with bare metal foil and that foil is applied properly, you're going to see this seam. It's going to show up. You're not going to hide it. I've heard people say you can hide it. I've got a lot of experience with bare metal foil and a lot of experience with seams, and I can tell you right now, if this surface is not perfect and you put bare metal foil on it, it's going to show every flaw in it, and especially that seam. So, you know, this is kind of what we're stuck with, is kit chrome, and stuck with these lines all the way around it. And people ask me, you know, what I do to remedy that situation. And there's a couple of different ways you can go about doing this. I have a selection of aluminum fuel tanks here. This is actually one of Jamie's original shorter Peterbilt tanks that he cut years ago. That's an option because there is no seams in this. All you have to do is use your something like electrical tape and chrome foil for your simulated straps and rubbers that go underneath of them. You can do it some other ways, but that's usually the easiest way to do it. This long tank here is one of Jamie's newer style tanks. I've probably got about 6 sets of these in here now. This is actually one of Jamie's short tanks with a little bit different end style on it. All these are different so far. This is a KFS tank. This is normally what I use. There's a couple things I don't like about the KFS tanks, but overall they're the lightest. This thing weighs nothing, and it has a decent finish on it. I don't really like the sharp edge that's on the KFS tanks. Now, you can get these also recessed on the ends. The one drawback that I do not like is the real sharp edge, and I have taken a set of KFS tanks and actually kind of tried to put a radius on this edge, and you will cut through these things very quick doing that. So normally, if I'm going to use the KFS tanks, I just polish them up and get the ends polished out and put them on with the straps, and it's a done deal. This is also a KFS tank, just a longer version. I think KFS makes 2 different lengths, and this is the 2 lengths, a short and a long. But that's, you know, the option that you have. If you want to go aluminum, you have a lot of options in that, and it does make it a lot easier. Because you're not dealing with the kit chrome, you're actually, you know, dealing with a piece of aluminum, which is what the tanks are made out of to begin with, or most of them are. The other option that we have out there is, this is a piece of 15/16 tubing. This is clear tubing from Plastrup. I use this sometimes depending on what I'm doing. You can get this in black, you can get it in gray, you can get it in the clear. If you're going to do any alclad or something like that, I would recommend the black because it has a very shiny finish on it already, and you can pretty much spray the alclad right over top of it, and it looks decent. And with this tube here, you can get it in 18-inch lengths, and you just cut it down to the length you need. So basically, if you had a kit tank and you wanted it that long, you just put a mark on it here and just cut that piece of tube off. And Plastrup also offers the caps that go in the end. This here is what they call a flat cap. This would, I guess, simulate the KFS ends. Yeah, it's pretty much just like KFS end. And they just slip into your tube like that, and you glue them in, and that creates your end. Then you put one on the other side, and the only seam you have to clean up is right between your tubing and your cap that you're putting in there. Which these are pretty precision fit things here if you get, you know, the right cap with the right tubing. You can also get these caps in where they have a dome to them. You can get them where they have a half circle to them or hemispherical dome. So you've got a couple options as far as the caps. Now, in this end cap here, when you get it, this is the way it comes in. There is some flaws in that. There's a sink mark. You can see it right there. There's a sink mark all the way around that thing. So once you get this in there and get it glued in, you'd have to go ahead and sand this flat. But you know, that's a whole lot easier than really messing with a kit tank, because you don't have the seam going through here and you don't have a seam going through here. I mean, you just got to clean the ends up a little bit and clean up this seam here, do some primer and painting on it, and you're pretty much good to go with it. So that's also an option. And then when you get into doing the straps or whatever on these tanks, this is a piece of just strip stock from Plastrup. You know, you can just get this on there and cut it to the lengths you need and wrap it around, and that creates your straps for your tanks. You can also use the electrical tape and the chrome foil technique on this also. But what I really want to touch on is those are some of the options that you have. But for the guys that may want to enter a model into, say, a box stock contest or something like that, which on my Pro Start I'm building, it's going to be a totally box stock build, so I cannot do the aluminum tanks, I cannot do the tubing and make my own tanks. I have to use these kit tanks. So I'm going to work on a tutorial on how to take these kit tanks and clean these things up, get rid of the seam, make it disappear, and keep all of your raised detail on it, and basically get it where it looks like a fuel tank. It's going to require a little bit more work than going, you know, the route of the aluminum tanks or this, but, you know, if you're kind of dictated where you have to do that, then, you know, that's the only option that you have. One thing that I'd like to show here is a lot of people, you know, they pretty much swear by the kit chrome, and, you know, kit chrome is okay if it's applied well. This is one of the Mobius fuel tank halves, and you can see the pits where there's actually a little bit of dirt that was either in that mold or got on that part before they chromed it. In a competition, that right there is going to cost you points, and it's not going to cost you as many points having that flaw underneath of that chrome as the judges walking up and seeing that. When they see that parting line, all that seam line all the way around there, you're pretty much done. They're going to walk right over top of it and go on to the next one. So that's why, you know, a lot of people have heard me say that I do not use kit chrome. There's a reason for that, because there is a bunch of flaws underneath of this chrome. Some chrome's better than others, but if it's a piece of plastic and it's a kit part and it's been chromed, more than likely it is going to have flaws underneath of it. And if you leave the chrome on, you just put the flaw on the model. No matter how good that model is, you just added the flaws to it. And today's competition gets pretty intense sometimes. The level's stepping up every year, so, you know, this kind of little stuff like this, it seems like no big deal, but for us guys that compete, it is a very big deal. And the other thing that, you know, I'd like to say on that is I see a lot of people on the forums and, you know, on the internet in general, they're building a truck and they're talking about, you know, what all they're correcting on it, and, you know, the manufacturer got this wrong and they got that wrong, and when the model is completed and you look at it, this seam is running through the fuel tank. I don't care how many things you corrected on that model and, you know, changed around and made the way that the real one is. If you have a seam running through your fuel tank, guess what? The real truck doesn't have that. The real truck may have a seam going around the diameter of the tank, where they weld the end caps on. Some do, some don't. But as far as a seam running all the way through the center of the tank, you're not going to see that on a real truck. No real truck has that. So that kind of defeats your purpose of correcting all kinds of things and, you know, saying I've done this or I've done that. If you didn't take care of these seams here, it doesn't really make a difference what you changed around and tried to make look like one-to-one, because, you know, this killed it. So the next tutorial I'm going to do, I'm going to start working on how I address these fuel tanks and how I go about cleaning them up and making the seam disappear. And I'll probably break that down into a 2 to 3 part tutorial. So this one here is just the introduction into the series that I'm going to do on this, and just gives you some options and, you know, kind of gives you a few pointers on, you know, what to look out for. So, like always, if you have any questions or concerns, just leave me a comment on the video and I'll be more than glad to get back to you on it. And stay tuned for the first part of the tutorial coming up here on how to correct this. I'll be doing that right after I get done with this one, so stay tuned for that. And I thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you a little bit later.